In the sprawling botanical research facility on the outskirts of New Delhi, Dr. Riya Patel never expected to make history on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The year was 2157, and humanity had been part of the galactic commonwealth for nearly 3 decades. While most scientists focused on flashy innovations in quantum computing or faster-than-light travel, Riya remained dedicated to her first love, plants. The research center's greenhouse complex housed both terrestrial and extraterrestrial flora, creating an otherworldly jungle of colors and shapes. Among the specimens was a remarkable variety of Jovanian aloe, a distant cousin of Earth's aloe vera that had evolved in the harsh conditions of Jupiter's moon Europa. Its crystalline leaves contained compounds that could accelerate healing in most known sentient species, except humans. Riya had spent the last 5 years trying to understand this peculiar exception. Why did a medicine that could knit broken bones in minutes for a centaurian have no effect on human tissue? The answer had eluded her until that fateful morning when she received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Patel. The melodious voice belonged to Ambassador Zyxtal, a Neptunian whose translucent body seemed to float rather than walk. I hope I'm not interrupting anything crucial. Riya quickly straightened her lab coat, trying to hide her surprise. Neptunians rarely left their water-filled environmental suits, let alone visited Earth. Not at all, Ambassador. How can I help you? The ambassador's body rippled with colors, their way of expressing enthusiasm. I've been following your research on healing compounds. We've noticed something interesting in our medical databases. Humans who regularly consume cannabis seem to respond better to our universal medicines. Riya's eyes widened. Cannabis had been fully legalized globally after first contact, as aliens found human prohibition of a medicinal plant bizarre. But this was the first she'd heard of any interaction with alien healing technology. That's fascinating, she muttered, already pulling up holographic data screens. Do you have the raw data? The next few hours flew by as Riya and Ambassador Zyxtal pored over medical records. A pattern emerged. Human cannabis users showed a 47% better response rate to alien healing compounds. But why? It's the endocannabinoid system, Riya realized, speaking more to herself than her guest. What if it's not just about healing, but about compatibility? Without waiting for a response, she hurried to her experimental chamber. Inside, she had been growing both traditional cannabis and the Jovanian aloe. With trembling hands, she began the process of combining their essential compounds. The result was unexpected. Instead of the usual green liquid, the combination produced a softly glowing purple substance. Initial tests showed it was stable, but that wasn't enough. They needed a practical test. Ambassador, Riya said slowly, would you be willing to assist me with an experiment? Zyxtal's body flashed with curious patterns. What did you have in mind? Riya held up a small vial of the purple liquid. I've been trying to get Earth's aloe vera to bond with Jovanian healing crystals for years. But what if cannabis is the missing link? The bridge between human and alien biology? The ambassador's environmental suit hummed as they considered the proposal. You want to test it now? We'll start with a simple tissue sample, Riya assured them, already preparing slides under her microscope. She carefully placed a drop of the purple compound onto both human and Neptunian tissue samples. What happened next would change the course of galactic medicine forever. The compound didn't just heal the tissues, it enhanced them. Under the microscope, cells regenerated at unprecedented rates, but unlike cancer, they stopped once they reached their optimal state. This is impossible, Zyxtal whispered, their body now a riot of excited colors. Do you understand what you've created? Riya stared at the microscope readings, her heart pounding. A universal healing agent. Something that works on both human and alien biology. More than that, the ambassador's voice trembled with excitement. You've created something that could revolutionize medicine across the galaxy. But, their colors shifted to warning reds and oranges, you must understand what this means. Once word gets out. Before they could finish, Ria's lab computer chimed with an urgent message. Somehow, news was already spreading. Her discovery had been detected by the facility's automated research tracking system, and preliminary findings were being uploaded to the Galactic Science Database. It's too late to keep it quiet, Ria realized, watching as download requests for her data began pouring in from across the galaxy. What do we do now? Ambassador Zewexdal's form settled into a serious blue hue. Now, Dr. Patel, we prepare. Because every pharmaceutical corporation, healing cult, and medical institution in the galaxy will be coming to Earth, and they'll all want what you've created. As if to emphasize the point, Ria's communication system began lighting up with incoming calls from across the galaxy. She saw names of major medical corporations, research institutions, and even a few she recognized as less-than-legal organizations. I never wanted to start a galactic gold rush, Ria said quietly, watching the call notifications multiply. No one ever does, the ambassador replied sympathetically. But you've just changed everything. The question is, are you ready for what comes next? Looking at her simple purple compound, now safely stored in a containment field, Ria knew her quiet days of botanical research were over. She had wanted to help people, all people, human and alien alike. Now she had the means to do it, but at what cost? The sun was setting outside her laboratory, casting long shadows through the greenhouse. Somewhere out there, ships were already changing course for Earth. The galaxy was about to beat a path to her door, and she needed to be ready. Ambassador, she said finally, straightening her shoulders, I think I'm going to need your help. News travels faster than light in the age of quantum communications. Within 48 hours of Dr. Ria Patel's discovery, the skies above Earth filled with vessels from every corner of the galaxy. The United Earth government declared a state of emergency, establishing a temporary no-landing zone while they scrambled to create new regulations for what they were calling Compound P. In her laboratory, now protected by a platoon of United Earth Defense Force soldiers, Ria watched the chaos unfold through her holoscreens. Ambassador Zewexdal had barely left her side, their translucent form shifting between worried greens and cautious yellows. The Orion Pharmaceutical Consortium is offering 50 billion credits for exclusive rights, her assistant, James Wong, reported, scrolling through endless messages. The Pleiades Medical Coalition is offering twice that. They're missing the point, Ria muttered, her attention focused on a new batch of the purple compound. This shouldn't be exclusive to anyone. A sharp knock interrupted them. Commander Vikram Singh, head of laboratory security, entered with a troubled expression. Doctor, we've got a situation. The Andromedans are threatening to bypass Earth's quarantine zone. They're claiming medical emergency rights under galactic law. Clever, Zewexdal's voice rippled. They're not wrong. Under Section 47 of the Galactic Medical Access Act, any civilization can claim emergency landing rights if they have patients in critical condition. Ria set down her equipment, frustration evident on her face. But they don't even know if Compound P will work for them. We've only tested it on human and Neptunian tissue samples. They're desperate enough to try, James said quietly. The latest reports show ships arriving from systems we didn't even know were inhabited. There's a vessel from the Carina Nebula that's been in transit for 3 days without stopping. Outside, the evening sky flickered with the lights of thousands of ships, their hulls reflecting Earth's sunset in a dazzling display. In any other circumstance, it would have been beautiful. Now, it felt like siege engines gathering. Doctor, Commander Singh stepped forward, we need to make a decision. The quarantine won't hold much longer, and we're getting reports of unofficial landing attempts in remote areas. The black market is already offering millions for a single drop of your compound. Ria turned to Ambassador Zewexdal. You've been unusually quiet. What are your thoughts? The Neptunian's colors swirled thoughtfully. We have 2 options. We can try to maintain control, restrict access, and watch as the galaxy tears itself apart fighting over this discovery. Or Or, Ria prompted. Or we can do something unprecedented. We can share it. Not the compound itself, but the knowledge. The formula. Let every world, every species adapt it to their own biology. Commander Singh frowned. The pharmaceutical corporations would never allow it. They've already filed patents in 17 systems. They can't patent something that's freely available, James said slowly, catching on to the ambassador's idea. If we release the complete research data. It would be academic suicide, Ria interrupted. No one reveals their research before peer review and proper trials. It goes against every scientific protocol. A new alarm blared through the facility. Commander Singh checked his tactical display and cursed. We've got unauthorized landings in the Sahara, the Australian outback, and the Siberian tundra. Multiple vessels, unknown origins. Ria watched as more alerts populated her screens. The situation was deteriorating faster than anyone had anticipated. In the medical wing next door, she could hear doctors arguing about triage protocols for the flood of potential patients they expected. What about a controlled release? James suggested. We select representatives from each major species, bring them here under supervision, and work together to adapt the formula for different biologies. Ambassador Zewexdal's form brightened. A galactic medical summit. We haven't had one of those since the Betelgeuse plague of 2098. It would take weeks to organize, Commander Singh protested. We don't have that kind of time. As if to emphasize his point, the building shook slightly. Above them, another wave of ships entered Earth's atmosphere, their gravity fields disrupting local weather patterns. Soon, they'd have storms to deal with on top of everything else. Ria stood up, her decision made. We do it now. Not weeks from now. Ambassador, can you contact the Galactic Council? We need their emergency broadcast channel. You can't be serious, Commander Singh started, but Ria held up her hand. I am. James, get me the research data, all of it. Commander, I need a secure channel to every major scientific institution on Earth. And Ambassador. I need you to help me convince the galaxy not to tear itself apart over this. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. As Ria prepared her presentation, more reports flooded in. A firefight had broken out in low orbit between rival corporate security forces. 3 different religious groups had declared Compound P a prophesied miracle cure. The Arcturian Science Academy was offering her permanent residence and unlimited funding. Finally, everything was ready. Ria stood before the quantum transmission array, her heart pounding. Behind her, rows of holoscreens showed faces and forms from across the galaxy, scientists, leaders, corporate executives, all waiting to hear what she would say. My name is Dr. Ria Patel, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. 2 days ago, I made a discovery that many of you are now willing to fight over. Today, I'm going to share it with all of you. The reaction was immediate. Corporate lawyers began shouting about intellectual property rights. Religious leaders proclaimed divine intervention. Scientific institutions demanded peer review protocols. Enough. Ambassador Zewexdal's voice cut through the chaos, their form glowing with authority. Dr. Patel has the floor. Ria took a deep breath. What I discovered isn't just a medicine. It's proof that despite our different origins, different biologies, different evolutionary paths, we're all connected. This compound works because it bridges the gap between species. It heals because it recognizes what we all have in common, the will to live, to grow, to help others. She pressed a button, and her complete research data began transmitting across the galaxy. I'm releasing everything, the formula, the production method, all of my notes. Use them. Improve them. Adapt them for your own people. But remember this, it only works because we're all in this together. The laboratory fell silent as her words sank in. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall from the disrupted atmosphere, pattering against the reinforced windows. In orbit, the corporate ships slowly powered down their weapons. Across the planet, unauthorized landing attempts ceased as vessels pulled back to safe distances. Commander Singh checked his tactical display and smiled slightly. "They're listening." "No," Ambassador Ziwextal corrected, their colors shifting to a peaceful blue. "They're thinking." For the first time since this started, they're actually thinking. Rhea watched the rain intensify outside, creating a symphony against the laboratory roof. She had just given away what could have made her the richest person in the galaxy. Instead, she felt richer than she ever had before. But as James's computer chimed with the first responses to her transmission, she realized this wasn't the end. It was barely the beginning. Now they had to help the galaxy learn to work together to make the most of this gift, and protect it from those who would still try to control it for themselves. 3 months after Dr. Rhea Patel's historic broadcast, the galaxy had transformed. Healing centers sprouted across countless worlds, each adapting Compound P to their unique biologies. But where there's healing, there's profit, and not everyone appreciated Rhea's decision to share her discovery freely. The first attack came without warning. Rhea was working late in her laboratory, now expanded into an international research center, when the power grid failed. Emergency lights bathed the facility in red as Commander Singh's voice crackled over the intercom, "Security breach in Sector 7. All personnel, initiate lockdown procedures. James, secure the samples." Rhea shouted to her assistant as she rushed to lock down her terminal. But James Wong wasn't at his usual station. Instead, she found a message floating on his holoscreen, "I'm sorry." The revelation hit her like a physical blow. James had been more than her assistant, he'd been her friend for 5 years. The betrayal stung worse than the actual breach. "Dr. Patel." Ambassador Ziwextal's voice emanated from the doorway, their usually translucent form now pulsing with warning reds. "We need to move. Now." Security footage later revealed the truth. James had been recruited by Genesis Pharmaceuticals, one of Earth's largest medical corporations. They wanted more than just the formula, they wanted Rhea's ongoing research into new applications of the compound. "They're trying to weaponize it," Commander Singh explained during the emergency meeting the next morning. The commander's usually pristine uniform was wrinkled from a sleepless night. "Think about it, a compound that can alter biology across species. In the wrong hands. It could become the deadliest biological weapon ever created," Rhea finished, her voice hollow. She hadn't slept either, spending the night reviewing every project James had access to. Ambassador Ziwextal's form rippled with concern. "This goes beyond corporate espionage. The Galactic Council has received reports of similar attacks on research facilities across 12 systems. Someone is systematically targeting everyone working with Compound P." "Not someone," a new voice interjected. Dr. Kenzo Tanaka, Earth's leading expert in corporate law and ethics, stepped into the room. His silver hair was disheveled, and he clutched a datapad like a lifeline. "Something. An alliance." He tossed the datapad onto the conference table, projecting a complex web of corporate connections. "Genesis Pharmaceuticals isn't working alone. They've formed a coalition with Orion Medical, the Pleiadian Health Consortium, and at least 4 other major corporations from different species. They're calling themselves the Galactic Medical Alliance. Their official statement claims they're protecting public health by ensuring proper regulation and distribution," Dr. Tanaka continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Unofficially, they're trying to establish a monopoly on all Compound P research and production." Rhea studied the corporate web, noting familiar names. These are the same companies that tried to buy the formula 3 months ago. "And now they're taking what they couldn't buy," Commander Singh growled. "We've identified similar break-in attempts at facilities on Mars, Europa, and 3 off-world colonies." Ambassador Ziwextal's colors shifted to a thoughtful blue. They're not just after the formula anymore. They want control of the entire field of xenobiological medicine that sprung up around it. They can't succeed, Ria insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. Too many people already have the knowledge. Knowledge can be suppressed, Dr. Tanaka said quietly. Research can be buried. Scientists can be discredited, or worse. As if to emphasize his point, Ria's computer chimed with an urgent news alert. Dr. Hassan Ibrahim, a leading researcher in compound P applications on Mars, had been found dead in his laboratory. The official cause, equipment malfunction. This is my fault, Ria whispered, staring at the scientist's photograph. I should have kept better security, should have seen this coming. No, Ambassador Zyxtal interrupted firmly, their form glowing with intensity. You did exactly what was right. The corporation's actions prove it. If they thought they could control this legally, they wouldn't be resorting to violence. Commander Singh nodded grimly. But now we need to protect what you started. Doctor, I'm tripling security in moving you to a safer location. I'm not hiding, Ria stood up, her exhaustion replaced by determination. We need to fight back. Not with weapons, but with what they fear most, more knowledge, more cooperation, more transparency. Dr. Tanaka raised an eyebrow. What are you suggesting? A network, Ria said, moving to the holoscreen and beginning to sketch out her idea. Not just of scientists, but of everyone working with compound P, healers, doctors, researchers, even traditional medicine practitioners from every species. We share everything, back up everything, make it impossible to suppress the knowledge. The corporations have virtually unlimited resources, Commander Singh warned. But they don't have what we have, Ria countered. They don't have the trust of the people they claim to want to protect. Every person healed by compound P, every family helped, every community restored, they're our allies. Ambassador Zyxtal's form brightened. The Galactic Council would support such a network. Many worlds remember what it was like before, when medical treatment was a luxury only the wealthy could afford. We'll need secure communications, Commander Singh said, already warming to the idea. Ways to protect our members, especially in corporate-controlled systems. And legal protection, Dr. Tanaka added. I know judges and advocates across 17 systems who would help. Ria nodded, feeling hope return for the first time since the attack. Then let's get started. James may have betrayed us, but he also taught us something valuable, we need to trust each other now more than ever. As they began planning, Ria's computer chimed again. This time, it was a message from a young healer on a distant mining colony, sharing her success in adapting compound P to treat radiation poisoning. Attached were her complete research notes, freely shared just as Ria had done 3 months ago. See? Ria said, displaying the message. This is what they can't stop. This is what they don't understand. Every person who uses this knowledge to help others creates a light they can't extinguish. The next few weeks saw an explosion of activity. As news of the corporate attack spread, researchers and healers across the galaxy began reaching out, forming connections, sharing knowledge. Every attempted suppression of information led to it being spread more widely. The Galactic Medical Alliance responded with increasingly desperate measures. Research facilities were vandalized. Data networks were hacked. Scientists faced harassment and threats. But for every researcher who was silenced, 10 more spoke up. In her new laboratory, heavily guarded but still active, Ria continued her work. The corporations might have taken her original research, might even have James helping them understand it, but they couldn't take what mattered most, the spirit of cooperation and sharing that had made the discovery possible in the first place. They don't understand, she explained to Ambassador Zyxtal one evening, as they reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Compound P works because it bridges differences between species. You can't control something that's fundamentally about connection and cooperation. The ambassador's form shimmered with agreement. Perhaps that's the real discovery here, not just a universal medicine, but a reminder of what we can achieve when we work together. As if in answer, another message arrived, this time from a collective of healers in the Andromeda Galaxy, sharing their success in combining compound P with traditional healing practices. Their results were extraordinary, and they'd already begun teaching others. Looking at their data, Ria smiled. The corporations might have started a war, but they'd already lost. They just didn't know it yet. 6 months into what the galactic media had dubbed the Medicine Wars, Dr. Ria Patel found herself in an unlikely position, leader of the largest underground scientific movement in human history. The very concept would have made her laugh a year ago. Now, it kept her awake at night. The Resistance headquarters had been established in an abandoned mining facility beneath the Himalayan mountains. The location was Commander Singh's idea. The abundance of rare earth minerals in the surrounding rock naturally interfered with corporate scanning technology. Another healing center was shut down in the Centauri system, Dr. Tanaka reported during their morning briefing. The lawyer's once immaculate appearance had given way to a more militant look, complete with tactical gear. But this time, the local population fought back. The corporate security forces were forced to retreat. Ambassador Zewextal's form rippled with satisfaction. The people are learning. The Galactic Medical Alliance can't suppress everyone. Ria studied the latest reports on her holoscreen. Their network now included over 10,000 healing centers across 500 systems. Each operated independently, sharing knowledge through quantum-encrypted channels. When one was threatened, 3 more would spring up to take its place. "What's the status of Project Echo?" she asked, referring to their latest initiative. Commander Singh pulled up a tactical display. "Better than expected. The seed vault facilities are complete on 17 worlds. Even if the corporations manage to suppress all active research, the knowledge will survive." The Vault project had been Ria's response to the increasing corporate attacks. Each facility contained complete records of all compound P research, along with seed samples of both cannabis and Jovanian aloe. More importantly, they contained something the corporations hadn't considered, detailed records of their own attempts to monopolize the medicine. "We've confirmed that James is working on something big for Genesis Pharmaceuticals," a new voice announced. Dr. Aisha Hassan, their head of intelligence, stepped into the room. The young xenobiologist had joined them after her brother was killed in a corporate raid. Their research facility on Titan has tripled its power consumption in the last week. Ria felt the familiar pang at the mention of her former assistant. "Any idea what they're working on?" "Our sources suggest they're trying to create a patentable variant of compound P," Aisha explained. "Something different enough from your original formula to claim as their own intellectual property, but powerful enough to make the original obsolete." "That's impossible," Ambassador Zewextal protested, their colors shifting to worried greens. "The compound works precisely because it's adaptable to different biologies. Any attempt to standardize it would," they stopped suddenly, their form paling. "Would what?" Commander Singh prompted. "Would require forcing different species biology to conform to a single standard," Ria finished, horror dawning on her face. "They're not trying to adapt the medicine to different species. They're trying to adapt different species to the medicine." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Forced biological standardization had been attempted once before, during the darkest days of the Galactic Dark Age. The results had been catastrophic. "We need to stop them," Dr. Tanaka said quietly. "Not just expose them, stop them. This goes beyond corporate greed now." Ria nodded grimly. "Aisha, get me everything you can on their Titan facility." "Commander, I need options for shutting them down." "That won't be enough," Ambassador Zewextal's voice was heavy. "As long as they have the research data, they can rebuild elsewhere. We need to do more than just stop this attempt, we need to make sure it can never happen again." "What are you suggesting?" Ria asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "We go public. Not just with what they're doing now, but with everything. Every illegal action, every suppressed study, every threatened scientist. We show the galaxy exactly what their protection of public health really means. They'll try to discredit us, Dr. Tanaka warned. They'll call it conspiracy theories, anti-corporate propaganda. Then we'll need proof, Commander Singh said. Irrefutable evidence. Aisha's eyes lit up. James. He knows everything about their operation. If we could reach him. He betrayed us once already, Commander Singh reminded her. People can change, Rhea said quietly. Especially when they realize they're on the wrong side of history. The next few days were a blur of activity. While Aisha's intelligence team gathered evidence, Rhea worked on something equally important, a new variation of Compound P. Not to control or standardize, but to protect, a formula that could help different species maintain their biological uniqueness even under external pressure. It's ready, she announced one evening, holding up a vial of deep indigo liquid. I call it Compound D, for diversity. Ambassador Zyxtal examined the liquid with their sensory appendages. You've done it again, Doctor. This isn't just medicine, it's a shield. And a message, Rhea added. That our differences are worth protecting. The message reached James through channels so secure even Commander Singh didn't know all the details. 3 days later, they received his response, a single word. Soon. They didn't have to wait long. A week later, every news network in the galaxy simultaneously received a massive data dump from the Titan facility. Research logs, security footage, corporate communications, everything. At the center was James's personal testimony, detailing how his guilt had grown as he watched the corporation twist Rhea's work into something monstrous. The public reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Protests erupted outside corporate offices on 1,000 worlds. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The Galactic Medical Alliance's stock prices collapsed as investors fled. But they hadn't anticipated the corporation's desperation. As their empire crumbled, they made one final, terrible choice. They've activated it, Aisha reported, her voice shaking as she burst into Rhea's lab. The standardization protocol. They're releasing it into the atmosphere of every world they control. How many? Commander Singh demanded. 37 colonies. Millions of people. Rhea was already moving. Release Compound D. All of it. Every vial we've produced. And get me a channel to broadcast to those worlds. As her team scrambled to comply, Rhea prepared herself for another historic transmission. But this time, she wasn't speaking to leaders or scientists. She was speaking to people fighting for their right to remain themselves. To everyone affected by the standardization protocol, she began, her voice carrying across the galaxy. Help is coming. The compound being released alongside it is called Compound D. It won't just protect you, it will strengthen what makes you unique. Because that's what healing should do. It should help us survive without forcing us to change who we are. Across 37 worlds, people watched as two compounds did battle in their skies, one trying to force conformity, the other protecting diversity. It was, perhaps, the perfect symbol of everything this conflict had been about. In the end, diversity won. The standardization protocol failed in the face of Compound D, and with it, the last desperate gambit of the Galactic Medical Alliance collapsed. But for Rhea and her allies, the work was far from over. We need to make sure this can never happen again, she told her team as they watched the news reports roll in. Not just the standardization protocol, but the whole idea that medicine should be controlled by those who want to profit from it. Ambassador Zyxtal's form glowed with approval. Perhaps that's the real healing we needed all along. 1 year after the failed standardization protocol, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The great halls of the Galactic Council on New Geneva hummed with anticipation as representatives from every known spacefaring civilization gathered for a historic occasion. Dr. Riya Patel stood at the podium, no longer the quiet botanist who had made an accidental discovery. The past year had transformed her, just as her discovery had transformed the galaxy. Behind her sat James Wong, recently pardoned for his role in exposing corporate corruption, along with Commander Singh, Dr. Tanaka, Dr. Hassan, and Ambassador Zyxtal. A year ago, Riya began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, we faced a choice between control and cooperation, between profit and healing, between uniformity and diversity. Today, we gather to ensure we never have to make that choice again. The Universal Medicine Accord lay before them, the culmination of months of work by healers, scientists, and legal experts from across the galaxy. It wasn't just a set of laws, it was a new way of thinking about medicine itself. The Accord recognizes three fundamental truths, Riya continued. First, that healing is a right, not a privilege. Second, that medical knowledge belongs to all sentient beings. And third, that biological diversity is not an obstacle to overcome, but a strength to celebrate. In the audience, she could see the former executives of the Galactic Medical Alliance, now under house arrest, watching with grim expressions. Their corporations had been dissolved, their assets redistributed to establish new healing centers across the galaxy. But this accord is more than just a response to what happened, Riya explained. It's a foundation for what comes next. The Galactic Health Cooperative will replace the old corporate system, ensuring that medical discoveries are shared freely while respecting the traditions and biological uniqueness of every species. The changes were already visible. The former Genesis Pharmaceuticals headquarters on Titan had been converted into the galaxy's largest xenobiology research center. The Pleiadian Health Consortium's private hospitals were now open to all. Even the notorious corporate prison on Europa had been transformed into a healing center specializing in trauma recovery. We've established something unprecedented, Ambassador Zyxtal addressed the council, their form shimmering with pride. A system where competition has been replaced by cooperation, where profit has given way to purpose. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward next, his legal expertise having been crucial in drafting the accord. The document before you isn't just about medicine. It's about trust. Trust between species, trust between worlds, trust in the idea that we can achieve more together than we ever could alone. The voting process took hours as representatives from each world registered their decision. No one was surprised when the final tally showed unanimous approval. The galaxy had learned its lesson about the cost of putting profit before people. Later that evening, in a quiet garden overlooking the city, Riya sat with her closest allies, sharing a moment of peace before the real work began. Did you ever imagine it would end like this? James asked softly, still carrying guilt for his earlier betrayal despite his later redemption. End? Riya laughed. This isn't an ending, James. It's a beginning. Commander Singh nodded in agreement. The corporate war is over, but maintaining this new system will require constant vigilance. There will always be those who prefer the old ways. Let them try, Dr. Hassan said firmly. We're better prepared now. The knowledge vaults, the healing centers, the communication networks, they can't be shut down or controlled. Ambassador Zyxtal's form pulsed with gentle colors in the evening light. The most remarkable thing isn't the medicine itself, but how it brought us together. Humans and aliens, scientists and healers, soldiers and diplomats, all working towards something greater than ourselves. Riya stood and walked to the garden's edge, looking out over the city where beings from countless worlds now lived and worked together. In the distance, she could see the newly established Galactic Medical Academy, where the next generation of healers would learn not just about medicine, but about the importance of keeping it free and accessible to all. You know what still amazes me, she said, turning back to her friends. That it all started with two plants. Cannabis and Jovanian aloe. One from Earth, one from the stars. Apart, they were useful. Together, they changed everything. Like us, James offered, a small smile on his face. Exactly like us, Ria agreed. Which is why we need to keep pushing forward. Compound P and Compound D were just the beginning. Think of what else we might discover now that we're all working together. As if to emphasize her point, her communicator chimed with a message from a research team in the Andromeda Galaxy. They had discovered a new application for Compound D, using it to help endangered species adapt to changing environments without losing their essential characteristics. That's the real legacy, Dr. Tanaka observed. Not just the medicines we've created, but the understanding that every discovery leads to more discoveries when it's shared freely. Commander Singh raised his glass in a toast. To discovery through cooperation. To healing without borders, Dr. Hassan added. To diversity in unity, Ambassador Zuyxtal chimed in, their form glowing brightly. To the future, Ria finished, looking at her unlikely family of conspirators turned healers. And to remembering how we got here. As night fell over New Geneva, lights began to appear in the sky, ships arriving from across the galaxy, bringing new healers, new ideas, new possibilities. The great experiment they had started was just beginning to bear fruit. In her pocket, Ria carried a small vial containing seeds from both cannabis and Jovanian aloe. A reminder of where it all began, and a promise of where they might go next. The galaxy had learned that true healing wasn't about control or standardization, but about understanding and embracing the infinite variety of life itself. Tomorrow, she told her friends, we get back to work. There are still worlds waiting for healing centers, still species we haven't reached, still discoveries to be made. But tonight, we celebrate how far we've come. As they sat together in the garden, sharing stories and planning for the future, Ria realized that they had created something even more powerful than a universal medicine. They had created hope, hope that no matter how vast the galaxy might be, no matter how different its inhabitants might seem, there would always be ways to help each other heal and grow. And somewhere out there, on countless worlds circling countless stars, people of all species were working together, healing together, growing together. The medicine wars were over. The age of cooperative healing had begun. It wasn't the end of their story. It was just the end of the beginning.